Man, y'all know the face, y'all know the name. You tune into the World's Realest Podcast, Talk Ain't Cheap Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Mr. It's a Movie Cleats Real Talk. And I got a special guest here with me, as y'all know by now, in traditional Talk Ain't Cheap fashion. I do not introduce my guests. They got to do it themselves. All my guests are grown. All my guests are grown.
All right.
So without further ado, guests, please introduce yourself.
What's going on? My name is Serge Roy. What do people normally say in other introductions? Do I just finish it with that?
I mean, who are you? What do you do? What makes you special?
Shit, I am a jack of all trades. Model, personal trainer, content creator, author. Shit, wonderful human being. Amazing, just an all-around dope dude, man. Fuck it, that's me. That's me, damn it.
That's dope. So let's talk about the author part, 'cause that's something I didn't know. When did you put out a book? What's the name of the book?
So the book is called How to Finally Lose Some Fucking Weight. I wrote it back in 2020, so it was during the pandemic. I was bored out of my mind, and I just recently launched my personal training application, so I was like, I need something to put out into the market and kind of like show my authority. So I wrote the book on how to lose weight, put it out on Amazon, and it's been doing pretty good. It's got a couple book sales. Go ahead and buy the book. You can find it on Amazon. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
So how does one lose weight? Because I'm chubby. As you see me at the gym, you see me in my sweats. I'm a chubby nigga now.
The best way to lose weight, I'm going to say, honestly, is stop eating. Nah, real shit. I'll tell you this much. Do you want the ethical way or the non-ethical way?
What's the way that works?
Well, both work. One just takes longer than the other. All right. You didn't hear this from me, right? I'm not telling you to go buy the shit. I'm just saying it has an ingredient in there that works. So anyway, it's called Broncaid. It's asthma medication. It's got an ingredient called ephedra, which helps burn fat, right? So essentially it helps oxidize your fat cells and helps you lose weight faster. So that's the non-ethical way. You can pick it up on at Walgreens for like fucking $15. Run it for like 2 weeks. Make sure you're on a diet and shit, and you'll lose weight a lot faster. The ethical way: stop fucking eating. Just stop eating so much. Try to avoid sugar, and just be consistent in your diet and exercise, and just be patient. More than anything, be patient.
Okay, I feel that. So I knew you for a while. Mm-hmm. Let's take it back all the way when I knew you. I knew you in high school. Mm-hmm. You was a chubby kid.
Yeah.
Very cool though. You never to me was a bad person. You always seemed like a very genuine, nice person.
Hope so.
And now you're like a completely different person.
Somewhat, in some regards.
So what was high school like for you, and how did high school basically propel you to become who you are now?
It's so funny because I don't know if you were there, but there was the 10-year high school graduation. Mm-hmm. There was the reunion, so I went actually, and it's funny because in high school, I thought like the people I'd meet in high school were people that I'd be friends with, for the rest of my life and stuff. And people change, which isn't a bad thing. We all change, obviously. I'm proof of that. But I think high school for me, the experience, as fun as it was, like it had its moments, it was also pretty challenging, not gonna lie. Like sometimes people make fun of me. I didn't have a lot of friends, so like sometimes I chill with myself, or like I had a core group of people I hang out with, but like as far as that, going walking around school, like everyone saying hi to you, shit like that I didn't experience, which is fine. And then I think the most jarring thing was when my brother passed away during senior year of high school. That kind of changed everything for me. So like my perspective on high school was already somewhat neutral, but then it just ended up being negative. But all in all, I think it was a great experience. It definitely propelled me to become a person that I think I needed to be in that moment. And then from there on, just kind of grew into the person I'm supposed to be, as time went on.
So I saw one of your posts in your reflections, and we're going to talk more about your reflections later on, that you lost both of your brothers.
Yeah.
And then you put out a post that said like, I'm okay, I'm at peace with it. What made you do that?
What made me put up the post, or what made me come to the conclusion that I was at peace?
Both.
So for me, when I post things on Instagram, I post a lot of like motivational stuff, which on one hand it is for other people, but honestly it's kind of like for myself, so I could always go back and reflect. And I think it's just a part of growth. I mean, growing up, not having a lot of friends, it kind of forced me to always look inward and always be willing to like journal or like talk about how I feel, whether that be with people or by myself. And I think Instagram was just another medium for me to do that. So over time, that's what it became. And I'm at peace with it because, you know, ultimately we'll die. You know, like no one's getting out of this shit alive. So, you know, as unfortunate as the circumstances were that my brothers passed away, at the same time though, I have to understand, and I think we all have to understand that, because, you know, death isn't exclusive to me. It's, you know, for everybody. Everyone can get these hands, more or less. But it's important for all of us to remember that because time is so finite, it's in your best interest to, you know, push the envelope in regards, like be willing to go the extra mile and really challenge yourself to not only obtain the things that you desire, but also live the kind of life that you could look back on and be like, you know, I'm happy I did this. And this is why I do the things I do.
So how have you been able to navigate life with that mentality? Like where did that mentality come from?
Primarily with my brother passing away. So when my brother DJ passed away, that was the first brother passed away. That's my middle brother. I was 17, and this was like 2 or 3 months out of high school graduation. Excuse me. And during that time, like when he had passed away, it kind of like just clicked in my mind, because I was just thinking about it, like, yo, it was 2 days ago, or not even, like less than 24 hours ago that I'd seen him. You know, I said hi to him, gave him a hug. You know, I asked him where he was going. He was like, I'm going to the studio, make music, and the rest is history. And you go from that to just being a fucking vapor in this world. It's crazy. So in my mind, I was like, well, what are the things I really want to do in my life? And I kind of grew up in a household where, you know, my parents were predominantly religious. So they kind of like try to mold you into being what they wanted you to be. So I think a majority of my mental after that was me just discovering the things that I like, my interest, and what I like to do. So a lot of that was like art, music, and somewhere along the way it was fitness, of course, but that then shifted into other things like modeling and acting, and that's like present where I am today.
Okay, that's dope. So you said in junior high school, you know, because like I said, I'm African. So being anything but black on Staten Island around black people in the early 2000s, mid 2000s was a challenge. Oh yeah. What was that experience like for you?
Man, honestly, it was terrible. It was bad. I used to get made fun of a lot. I used to get jumped a lot in junior high school, like because I would go to junior high in like slacks and a blazer and shit. Because in Haiti, that's how you go to school. And I would go to school, and like sometime around lunchtime, kids would get all like rambunctious and shit. And then next thing you know, like I'm walking up the steps and like I'm getting beat up, you know, and like sometimes bullies would like throw shit at me or like just, you know, just make fun of me just because. And it wasn't until I started fighting that I was finally like quote unquote accepted. And for me, like I always thought about that in the back of my mind, like it's kind of fucked up as like in regards to, okay, you literally have to commit an act of violence in order to get some peace. But understandably so, I could only imagine that's how some kids probably went through their childhood and their like upbringing. So they only rationalize it by like lashing out and doing the same. So that's the only way I could justify it. But other than that, it was fucking trash.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It's crazy to me now when I see like everyone bumping Afro beats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I remember like nobody was like jacking like being like there was Africans that I knew that was like clearly African. Mm-hmm. Like your name is Babatunde. Like you're African, bro. You going by Bob. Like that's not your name.
Right.
And now and they were jacking. They were Jamaican and Trini and Guyanese. It was just a crazy time. But I understand definitely what you've been through. Not so much what you've been through, but like how you've kind of rationalized how you approach things. Just because the experiences of being black on Staten Island is like so nuanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, very unique situation for sure.
Okay. So, who's Drew Paris?
Man. First of all, I haven't made music in like years.
8 years.
Yeah.
7 years, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's been quite some time. Drew Paris was because it's still around, just like dormant, you know. He is my stage name, a mix of two random individuals from a movie I was watching. I think it was Love Don't Cost a Thing. Somebody, if you end up listening to this, correct me somewhere if there's ever a comment section while you're watching this. But I do believe it was Love Don't Cost a Thing. And it was two of the main actors. The female's name was Drew, and the dude's name was Paris. And I was high as shit this day. And I was at my friend's house, and you know, that's when I was like kind of making music more frequently, and I was thinking of a name, and I seen it, and I was like, Drew Paris. I was like, I got it. And my friend looked at me like I was stupid, but I was like, it's not about the name, it's about the music. And that's what I ran with.
And your music isn't like traditional, like just hip hop or R&B. It's kind of like alternative.
Yeah.
Where did you get into that kind of music? Like,
so I grew up in a religious background, and growing up, I was in like a lot of like choir work, right? So, excuse me. I was always in the choir as a kid, and that kind of like migrated to me just exploring other music that I was interested in. Like my brothers, they listen to hip hop all the time. My brother Didier, the one who inspired me to make music, he made hip hop primarily. But I always had like a more eclectic music taste, right? So my mom gave me an iPod Nano for Christmas, and that's when LimeWire was popular. So I went on LimeWire, explored all the links. I listened to Linkin Park for like the first time, and my mind was just, it was blown, you know? And from that point on, I was always a fan of like rock and alternative and shit. And even when I would do shit like when I would go to music class, and, you know, we would study music, the music that was presented was always very different from hip hop. And I guess over time that kind of just influenced my own music style. And when I drew inspiration for writing music, a lot of it came from that background. And the hip hop was kind of just like a layer onto it. You know, it was just like rhyming with the beat as I like sang to it, that just kind of put it all together.
okay. And you have a song called Tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. How did Tonight come about?
It's so funny. Tonight was kind of random. Like, so my thing back then was I wouldn't come up with any like musical concept per se. I would just listen to the beat, and it was almost as if like I would let the beat tell me what to say. So I think I was just listening to that beat after I left work. I was working at Crunch at the time, and I was sitting in my car when I was driving at the time, and I was just listening to the beat over and over again. And I think I either had some money, or, you know, the thought of money was just on my mind. And I was like, so what did I say? I was like, you know, my money fold up. And I kind of just like went on a riff and a tangent with that. And like it just followed afterwards. And I wrote the song.
Nah, your music is interesting, because when I was going through it, I was like, you have visuals, like you were really like trying to really make this thing happen.
Yeah.
And I was just interested in like, you know, as someone who's a multifaceted creative as well, like what made you really want to do it? Like what made you want to take at that point in your life, like at that point in your life, what was going on that you were like, I want to turn to music as my outlet?
My brother died. That was purely the inspiration, because I would go to bed, like when I was going to junior high school, before I'd go to bed, my brother would come home from work. He'd be like, yo, listen to this freestyle. And he would do it for like hours. Like, I mean, this man would freestyle off the top of his head for hours, bro. Like literally no phone, no nothing, just the beat playing in the background. He just spin. And like, I'm trying to get sleep. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to go to bed. He's like, you don't support me, man. Like, he would just go on a riff like, you don't support me, bro. I see how it is. I'm like, what are you talking about? I fucking love your music, but I'm trying to sleep. And, you know, when he passed away, it was kind of like he had such a passion for it. I was like, I can't let this shit die. You know, like there's no way I could let this disappear. And I started writing as a joke. Before all of this, I was actually in a rock band, which I guess I should have added also influenced my my music to as well. But I was in a rock band, so I was writing a lot of like rock lyrics and shit. And one day I just wrote like a parody to Gears of War, because I was like my friend group's like favorite thing to do at the time. So I just wrote like a parody, and they're like, yo, this is pretty good. So I just took it and ran with it. I wrote another song, like an actual song, and that was fire. At least they thought it was fire. And I was like, maybe I could do something with this. And then like over time, like as I would post stuff, people would write articles. Like some people would ask like, yo, can I put this on like a playlist and stuff like that? And I was like, damn, this is like low key actually turning into something. And it all came to a climax when I opened up for Meth and Redman, I believe back in 2018. That was at the time I was in a relationship. And that was kind of like the climax of it, because I opened for them. I did really, really good with the crowd. Could have had an opportunity to continue like on tour with them. Went home because I was beefing with my girl at the time. My friends wanted to leave. And, well, that shows you where my priorities were at the time. And after I got out of that relationship, I was kind of just like in this really depressive state. I was signed to an agency called fucking Human Resources in Canada, which I think got bought out by Warner. Got signed to them, didn't put out any music during like my contract time, got dropped, and I just stopped making music.
So you actually got signed?
Yeah, I got signed to a distribution deal.
That's dope. Do you like knowing about music now and knowing about the industry? Are you happy that you kind of didn't go through the music industry?
I think yes for my own personal reason, but I also say no for like the sake of like larger endeavors. Like there's so many things I wanted to do if I was in the industry that, I mean, I don't think those opportunities are gone because a lot of them was just more so like meeting people and with the opportunity to network to do more. But I think from the larger scope, I kind of do regret it in some ways.
What would you have done differently?
Shit. I think I just would have broke up with my girl at that point and just kept on rocking, you know, because all I had to do was just go into the back room, talk to them, you know, like, yo, performance is great. You want to continue? Done deal. You know, that's how, at that time, that's how a lot of people got their start, where they're like, would do a show, meet somebody, they'd be willing to take them on the road. They do really well on the road, and then they drop something that's really, really hot, and it bubbles up, and then boom.
Understandable. Who is Unessential Essentials?
You reminded me of Nardwar. Unessential Essentials, that was a mixtape of a collection of songs that I had wrote but never put out. I still have a bunch of songs that I made and I never put out. But yeah, it was a collection of tracks that I made. And at the time when I was signed, I was uploading my music through a software called Orchard. So the Orchard is pretty much an all-in-one suite that shows you like analytics. It shows you like fucking charting dates, charts where you chart on like, you know, Spotify and stuff like that. And it's usually ran by your agent, who hence sent me the email that my shit wasn't working anymore, so I couldn't upload it. So I couldn't upload it through them. So I uploaded it, I believe, through DistroKid. And I uploaded that, and then I uploaded my second project, UE2, Unessential Essentials 2, through DistroKid as well.
So what's the difference between Unessential Essentials and Drew Paris?
So Unessential Essentials was just the title of the mixtape that I made. You know, the music that I make is still under Drew Paris. But at that time, Unessential Essentials was just that. It was just a title that I was running with. Because to me, they were essential. But for other people, you know, just the random stranger, it may not be essential. So I was like, all right, Unessential Essentials, fuck it.
Very dope. What? Why are you laughing?
No, well, first of all, I'm high. That's number one. Number two,
as you should be.
As I should be. And number two, it's just so funny to go down memory lane. And like sometimes you put these things off in like the back of your mind because you're trying to pursue other endeavors. But then when you hear them come back up, it's like, damn, that's what I was doing. Like, holy shit.
So let's talk modeling. What made you want to get into modeling?
Man, this was such a joke at first. Honestly, this was a joke. So while I got into modeling at the same time, my music career was being put on hiatus, long-term hiatus, I should say. I was going through such a what felt like a tumultuous time with my girl at that time, the relationship with my parents, with my friends, my performance at work, like all of that was just suffering. And one of the biggest crux in my mental condition at that time was that I was overweight. So I was in a relationship, got out of a relationship. At some point I almost jumped in front of a train, almost took my own life, didn't do that, changed my mind, started working out more intensely instead. Like I was a personal trainer, but I was fat. You know what I mean? Like I was the kind of coach where I was like, oh, do this. Meanwhile, here I am, you know, bodying Doritos and shit. No discipline whatsoever. So I was like, I want to change my life in a way that's like a complete 180 from what I was doing. And I lost the weight. One day, my coworkers at the time, shout out Diva Nerds Media on Instagram, give her a follow. She approached me. She was like, you want to take some photos? Like, you look really good. Like, I got fucking lean as shit. And she was like, you look great. You want to take some photos? And at first I was like, not really. You know, like I think this is a joke. But we took some photos. At that time, we took some test shots. And I was still with my ex. And she kind of like made fun of me for it. She's like, oh, you think you're a model now? And I was like, listen, one day you're going to look back at this moment and see me in my modeling career and you're going to be tight. And that's what I said to her. And from that moment, I looked at the photos and I was like, you know, these actually aren't bad, you know? So took a couple more and I was like, all right, well, maybe I could try modeling. Like it was always something in the back of my mind when I was like 15, 17, because at that time I was like really into the gym and shit. And I was always like, I was the kid, like chicks used to say like ew and shit. Not all of them, but like one or two. And it still plays in my mind sometimes. But I was that kid. So I think for me, I think aesthetics or like how I looked was always important to me. And to make a long story short, I started doing some like freelance work. And then at some point I got paid to do some like underwear shit. Then I got paid to do Ray J's headphones, Raycon. And I was like, oh, I could actually start making money from this. And then one thing led to another. I did work for Doritos, Skillshare. I could sit here and name a bunch of brands. But yeah, it started off as a joke and kind of like turned into an actual thing.
Is modeling what you're passionate about?
As of right now, at this moment, yeah, it's something I love to do. I mean, listen, you could make, depending on what kind of gig you land, if you know, get a really good gig, you can make a nice little bag doing like 6 days worth of work and not have to do anything for like a week or two if you really wanted to. So I think for me, that's where, obviously that's what I like the most, but just being able to like bring products to life and stuff like that, that's where I find enjoyment.
So if somebody was listening and they wanted to get into modeling, what is some advice that you would give them that you've learned during your time modeling?
My best advice I would say is, number one, fuck what you heard about like size inclusion and all that. They still want very specific size requirements. So firstly, make sure you hit that, right? Like make sure you stay in the gym. Second thing is I would say get like your basic digitals. Like you've got your tight shots from the neck up, then you've got from the chest up, then you got waist up, then you've got full body, then you've got swimsuit. From there, if you plan on doing freelance work, because the only reason why you'd need an agency is if you don't have access to like larger gigs. But with today's advent of technology, you've got a whole host of booking suites that you could use to your advantage. So if you're going to go the freelance route, just make sure you have access to those things. Make sure you're constantly looking for work, constantly submitting yourself, updating your packages, like updating your photos and shit. Keep taking test shots. And, you know, just fucking stay on this motherfucking grind, because it's not easy whatsoever. Not easy. Like, you think you're going to eat right away? Nah, you're going to starve for a little bit. You're going to eat some plates of shit. And then, you know, then you'll start making some money.
What's the most money you've made during one modeling gig?
So one modeling gig, I made $2,400 for 6 hours of work. That's
not bad. That's what folks is making every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If they're making that.
Yeah, some people, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you also have a podcast.
Yeah, correct.
Back to Center.
Yeah.
Tell us more about Back to Center. What made you want to start a podcast? And you have episodes too, by the way. It's not like you have like one or two. You have a lot of episodes and you do them by yourself.
Yeah.
That's tough. Like, I'm telling you, like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, I've done a couple of those and like I just like, nah.
This ain't it. Well, I think if anyone's been listening to this, it's pretty apparent that I go on long monologues, right? That's already apparent. So I started making my podcast back during the pandemic because I think that was during the height of the dating and relationship nuances. Like, it was kind of at a whisper at that point. Nowadays, it's kind of like all you see on the internet, depending on where you're looking. But at that time, you know, it was kind of like hearsay for a lot of the content that's currently out now. And for me, I just had like a lot of opinions on shit because, you know, if anything, COVID kind of like opened my eyes to not to what reality is, but like how things kind of move in a certain fashion, right? And everyone has opinions on everything. And I also have opinions. So I was like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and just, you know, say what I think. And over time, I started with one episode as a test. And then from there, it just developed into more. And then after that, it turned into like this thing now where it's like 3 seasons in, got like damn near 100 episodes. It was ranking pretty high on like podcasts, not obviously not like national shit, but you know, it was doing pretty well. And I took a hiatus because I wanted to focus on my YouTube channel. So, but I'll be back soon.
We're going to touch on the podcast. Because I listened to a couple of the podcasts and I was like, this man really talks to himself for an hour. I don't know how he does it. Because your podcast is interesting because you talk about like top trending topics of things that's happening that you see across the internet. Then you go into these tangents just about different relationships and stuff like advice and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So these are some questions that I got from the podcast that were unfinished that you never answered.
Okay.
So you were like, I'm going to get into this at another point in my life, or I'm going to get into this at a different time. And it was why you shouldn't go 50-50 with your partner. Why shouldn't you go 50-50 with your partner?
Okay, because in my personal opinion, I just feel like it's the man thing to do. I know people are going to give me a lot of riffraff for that. Like, you can't say that. But my personal opinion, I've never had a hard time with any woman after I've like went on a date and like paid for the first date. First of all, if you can't pay for the first date, you shouldn't be dating in the first place. That's my personal opinion. I think asking someone to split the check after you explicitly invite them out is also a little redundant. Like, what's the point of doing that? It's just a bad look as far as like optics are concerned. So, I mean, hey, just pay for it.
Okay. You also have a topic that you said why you wouldn't advise people to get married during this climate.
Yes. The marriage laws are especially abhorrent. First of all, the idea that you're going to get into a relationship with a woman and expect her to like cook and clean, take care of the house without receiving any backlash at some point in time is insanely naive. Unless she's coming from like especially strict parents or a culture that exclusively speaks on those things and like, you know, holds that as the standard, which I think ironically used to be America, but not so much anymore. The odds of you finding that is slim to none. And I think with the way divorce courts go and how men often get fleeced financially and zeroed out, unfortunately, I don't think it's a good idea for any guy until that changes.
Unless you move to Texas, where they actually have laws that basically say you don't have to pay more than a certain amount of money in child support.
Right, unless you go to Texas or you fly to another country or whatever the case may be. But some guys aren't willing to do that. So,
and you also in your podcast have very similar sentiments about starting a family in this climate.
I agree. Yes.
So, what is your take on starting a family during this economic climate?
The average man in America makes about $42,000 a year. The average female in America makes about $30,000. The cost of one child from 0 to 18 is approximately on average $308K a year. I mean, $308K in their lifetime, excuse me. Me personally speaking, unless you are financially prepared to do that, obligatory from the ages of 0 to 18, and then optionally thereon after, it would be in your best interest not to have children because financially you wouldn't make it. And one of the reasons why a lot of people get divorced in this country is because of finances. So, honestly, to me, that just seems like a no-brainer. If you ask me, like, what's the point?
Yeah, you said that you almost had a kid.
Yeah, damn, you falling out all the questions today. Yeah, I almost had a kid. This I can openly talk about because at this point, it doesn't kill me to speak on it. So I almost had a kid a couple years ago. I think right now at this point, this child would have been like fucking 5. But we got the exit plan. Shout out to Planned Parenthood, who put the strategy in place to say the least. And it was a successful termination. The kid is now respawned in another dimension. Trying to make light about abortions is so crazy, but honestly speaking, it was probably one of the craziest moments of my life. But yeah, the baby was aborted, and this isn't downplay the mom. She's not a terrible individual nor a terrible human being. Just two people, wrong place, wrong time. Almost had a baby, and yeah, got rid of the kid, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of thankful for, because if it wasn't for that, it would be a lot harder to model or like make content or do any of the things I'm trying to do right now, which I think it's in every guy's best interest to try to chase their endeavors And then at that point, okay, now we can have the conversation about having a family and things of that nature. Because to me, I feel like it would be hard to do both. How are you an amazing husband or boyfriend, whatever the case may be, and at the same time, a magnet millionaire individual?
You kind of referenced this in your podcast. So you kind of call it the adult routine. And you basically said, when you have kids and when you're in a certain situation and you're not financially basically where you want to be and you have a child, you're not being able to chase your dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at that point, how do you? You have something that I feel like people should take that shit serious if you're going to have a child, right? And in my personal opinion, I feel like once you have a child, it's kind of like game over for some of the things that you want to do. Like, how can you possibly have rap dreams and you got a kid? I mean, obviously some people do pull it off, and hats off to them. But for the average person, I don't think it's feasible. So again, it's like, it would be in your best interest to make sure you have your finances in order before you go ahead and do stuff like that. But we get so caught up in the adult routine where it's like, these social milestones that you're expected to have at certain ages, that people end up down this like spiral. And they can't get out simply because they're listening to everyone around them instead of what they want to do.
And like when you have a kid, you have to also set them up for like college and shit like
absolutely.
that.
How could you not?
Yeah, because I know you actually said this in one of your podcasts, how your mom, being the type of religious woman she is, has a beautiful heart and she's dope, but she made some errors.
Preach.
That impacted your college experience.
Preach.
Would you like to talk about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Go for it, bro.
This is one of my biggest gripes with religious people. They're so blinded by their own hubris. They fail to see the ramifications of what they do and how it reverberates to other people around them. Like my mom decided to have the bright idea after my brother passed away to spend $20,000 on building orphanages in Liberia. Great idea. Beautiful idea. Sure. If it actually happened, this woman, bless her heart, got scammed out of $20,000, which just so happened to be my college tuition fund. Can you believe that?
So did you go to college?
I went to CSI. So I got accepted to Hofstra, Santa Barbara, Nassau Community College, and CSI. Didn't go to any of those first three. Went to CSI like twice. And I did the prerequisites, dropped out like halfway. And then I did the prerequisites again, finished like half a semester, and then I dropped out again and I went back to college.
Do you regret not finishing?
Yes and no. I mean, I ended up going back to school during COVID for tech sales. So I had like a short stint in tech for a little bit. I was an account executive. So, I mean, listen, if I had stayed in tech, it's a solid career. So honestly, I had no regrets. It was a great fucking salary. I'll tell you that much. Listen, if you are looking for a job, you try and change your life, get a tech sales like program degree, and then get you a job in tech. Do really, really well, you'll make bread. I was making bread, bro. It was great.
What made you want to get out of tech then, if you were making that bread?
Internal fulfillment, which sounds very naive to say as someone who's getting older, but I think we don't place enough emphasis on the feeling of being satisfied with your work. Because I mean, listen, I was working in tech. I worked for a food safety tech company called Hazel, which got bought out by Ecotech. And at that time when I was their sales executive, they were like flying me out to conferences. It was great. I was having the whole corporate experience, whatever. But, I'd always sit in those hotel rooms and I just think to myself, like, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? Like, I don't know. Something about it just didn't make me feel like I could be proud of my work. Like, ooh, you closed the deal with Walgreens. Congratulations. Didn't really do much for me, So I was like, internally, what do I really appreciate? And one day, I got a one-on-one call with my CEO. This is how I found out we got bought out by Ecolab. And essentially they just told me, they were like, well, the company can't compete with Ecolab because we gave them a white label version of the technology. And they were like, well, we can't compete with them. They keep buying us out. So we're going to have to get bought out. They're going to buy us. They're giving us an offer. So we're going to sell the company, but your role's been absolved. So they gave me my severance, they gave me the rest of my commissions, and they're like, all right, figure this shit out. And I thought about it. I was working on a personal training app at the time, and I was like, what if I just actually like dove in on all of that shit and like just like made it work? And then between modeling and the fitness app, you know, kind of put like the pieces together, and I was able to sustain myself.
Was the fitness app the one that has like the Get Fit with Serge?
Yep, Fatara Fitness.
Fatara Fitness. So what happened with that?
So Fatara Fitness is still around. We actually have a 3.0 version of the application right now. Just currently working on like the marketing end and just rolling that out. But yeah, it's available. We've got over 1,000 exercises. We've got over 100 recipes, nutritional blogs, you name it, we got it. You could try a free trial. It's a 6-day free trial. You get access to the entire app, track your progress, track your nutrition, enter your nutritional information. You could sync the data with your Apple Watch. And then after the trial, it's $9.99 a month. So can't beat it, $10 a month. And then from there, you have access to personal training if that's something you want. You can send a message in the app and then figure out, you know, how you want to go about it. You could do it monthly, quarterly, or yearly. And then from there, we can set up your calls, set up your personal training, workout program, nutrition, etc., and get you on your way.
What made you want to start this app?
Well, I mean, I've been a coach now for almost 12 going on 13 years. So it was always in the back of my mind to like want to do something on my own, because I understood the business model and I had a lot of success doing a lot of things on my own, like in person. At that point then, I just wanted to make it virtual, so I have more like scalability. You know, I have more time for myself. So, you know, I found a couple developers in India, who work on white label apps, and they basically build the back end. I supply it with, you know, data and information, and then, you know, we collaborated on it together and gave birth to Fatara.
That's dope, bro. You've done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Are you fulfilled in the things that you've done?
My girlfriend asked me this question. I'm not. And I think primarily one of the reasons is because there's so many other things I want to accomplish. And what I hate about myself is that at times I think like, damn, I'm getting older. Like I'm running out of time. You know what I mean? So I kind of put myself in this state of forced work where I have to try and do as much as possible, which leads to like a lot of burnout. And, you know, it's a vicious cycle. But the way I see it is like, you know, shout out to these guys, but who knows when you can die? You know, like you can literally die now. A motherfucker listener, your heart could stop right now and you can't do shit about it. That's real.
So if you're not fulfilled, why are you doing it?
I think a lot of it is habitual. I also think fulfillment and passion are two different things. Like, I think passion is something that innately you feel as though you have no choice to do. Like, I have to do this because it's just something within me. But I think from a fulfillment perspective, I think that's more of like or how I would define it is when you lay your head on your pillow at night and you're like, if I died right now, would I be satisfied? The way I see it is no.
What would make it satisfying? Like what? Because I'm not gonna lie, I can see what you're saying, but I feel like in life you just kind of have to navigate life until you get to where you gotta get to. Like I feel like the fulfillment part comes when you just accept the process and the journey, because it's not like you're gonna reach a certain plateau and then you go back, I'm fulfilled. Like it's kind of like you're gonna constantly keep trying to improve regardless.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think personally that's kind of a lesson that I need to continuously learn in life, because I'm always at that like tug and war, like fulfillment, passion, you know, kind of stance with myself. And I think at the end of the day, the more I'm willing to be open-minded about the journey and not get frustrated when things don't go the way I want them to go or how I expect them to, the more I'll give myself the opportunity for that kind of fulfillment. Because obviously what you're saying is making a lot of sense. And I think, again, being creatures of habit, we oftentimes end up behaving in the manners that we were raised. And I think a lot of the time seeing my mom or my grandma or my brothers, whatever the case may be more autonomous with their activities and just like doing it to get through it. That kind of like ingrained itself somewhere within my own psyche.
How's your mental health?
Mental health, I'd say, is pretty good, more or less. I mean, some things I don't think ever go away, like the death of your brothers. That doesn't leave you. You know, I think that's always in the back of your mind. But at least the way I see it, you have to learn how to maneuver with those things, like as you do them. Like you might face challenges day by day, but learning how to express how you feel in that moment in a more constructive manner, or taking a step back to reflect on how you feel, maybe put in like a journal entry. Those things I think help me navigate how I feel when I feel challenged the most.
Is journaling how you started your reflections tab?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, more so just listening to audiobooks. Like when I started giving books more of a chance, and I was always into books when I was younger, but as time went on, I gave myself more of an opportunity to listen to audiobooks as I got older. And there's just so much knowledge in audiobooks and just a wealth of information that it kind of inspired me to be a little more analytical, more or less, and really think about what I'm doing. And I guess more so just be proactive. So journaling kind of gives me that next day mental check because I'll journal at night. So I'll air out all my grievances, whether that be in a notebook or that be digitally. And in the morning, I'll either read it or play it back. And then it's funny because I think in those moments, if I write down like something I'm going through, a challenge, at that point, I'll come up with a solution. So for me, it's kind of like almost giving myself the opportunity to solve something that was bothering me in the past that I can now take as information into the future and do something different with it, or just, you know, use that knowledge to overcome something else.
That's very introspective. How did you get to that point where you became so introspective and, you know, went on this like self identification process?
Shit, that was the day I almost fucking deleted myself. Go ahead. You were gonna say something? Yeah. The day I almost fucking took myself out of this dimension. I really had to ask myself why, because I was like, why did I try to do that? Like, what? Okay, then what? Like, what does that solve? You know? And I just got so hell-bent on thinking of becoming more solutions-based. And I found the only way through that is through thought. Like, you can't force a abstract situation. Excuse me. You can't force an abstract situation to change through physical means, right? Like you have to think through these problems. And for me, a lot of the issues that I had wasn't necessarily physical. A lot of it was mental. So through that, I was like, all right, well, I need a book. I need something to give me clarity. And I stumbled across some books. And then from that, it kind of like opened my mind up to journaling or meditative practices. And then I kind of just repeated the cycle, you know, find a new book, more information. And then I started applying that to like business and marketing and like all this other stuff. And at some point you just become like this information wheelhouse, and all of that, ironically enough, becomes healing in a sense.
What are some of the books that you read that has had a dramatic impact on your life?
I got you right now. Hold on. Let me just go to my... Wait. Hold on. Sorry. Nothing like getting random text from your agent. They message me at the most random times. Anyway, all right. So a couple books that really changed my perspective on things. The first one, for anyone who has like hard to deal with parents, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay C. Gibson, Psych D. Great book about parents who might be emotionally stunted and anyone who had to be raised by someone like that. And it helps you like come to terms with things and, you know, just think about solutions on how to repair your relationship. Another one is The Story of You and How to Create a New One by Steve Chandler. I think when we talk about change, this book is a great example of it, because all we really are is just a amalgamation of stories, you know, just like a compilation of shit that we tell ourselves, and we end up acting like that. And the reality is you could change that story whenever. You know, like you don't have to stay stuck with the story of like, oh yeah, I was this overweight kid who, you know, was pretty unlucky in life, lost both his brothers, now, you know, some loser or whatever the case may be. You could change that. And I think this book is a great reflection of that. And the last one I would say is, honestly, if you're into really, really long ass books, this one is like 72 hours because it's like 10 books in one. It's called Neville Goddard, The Complete Reader. I'm not very religious. Like, I don't really fall into a denomination, but I think there is something that is the progenitor of all things. And I think we're the personification, like the human personification of that quote unquote spiritual entity. And I think it's just a great book to like kind of like open your mind on things. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's dope. I'm definitely gonna need your library when it's all said and done. You use like Audible, or what platform do you use to listen to books?
Yeah, I use Audible. Sometimes I'll use YouTube. Like you could somehow you could find like a wealth of audiobooks on YouTube as well. So I recommend that.
Awesome. Let's talk dating. It seems like you're an expert in dating. Because everything in life, I feel like you have a couple of common threads in your life that's impacted you. The death of your brothers.
Yes.
Your mental health. And your journey to self-awareness. And women.
Yes.
Do you remember your first kiss and how your first experience with a woman was?
Yes, it was. I think it was third grade with this white woman named Lucille. Well, not white woman. It was a little girl. I was also a little boy at the time. Kissed me underneath the desk. And yeah, that was the start of it all.
When you say start of all, is it start of women or white women?
Probably a little bit of both, to be honest. You know, I don't separate women by like color. I've dated all sorts of women. I think, ironically enough, though, a majority of the women I've dated are white. If you can't inherently tell by the tone of my voice, that's obviously why that would be. But that's another conversation for another day. But yeah, that was kind of like the start of women. Like, I don't know, women always just fascinated me. Like, they didn't scare me, but I always thought they were interesting. You know? What
interested you about women?
Well, obviously how they look. That's primarily number one. But I think just as individual beings, they're so different from men, from how we act. It's just so interesting to like get their perspective. Like, a lot of guys don't like talking to women and like hearing their insights, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I find it like, and not in like this simpish kind of way, but an intelligent woman giving perspective on things is almost in a sense like mystical in some ways. I don't know. That's my perspective. Okay.
So you've always kind of had a girlfriend. Are you one of those people that have to be in a relationship?
No. I've never been the type of person that's always had to have a girlfriend. I think in my entire span of dating thus far, I think I've only had like 3 girlfriends. So I'm not the type of person who is willing to jump into exclusivity right away. Like, I know there are a lot of guys out there that'll run into one chick and be like, oh my God, I have to be with you. And moreover, I really started dating more out of high school. So like when I was in high school, I didn't date a lot. But ironically enough, once I got out of my relationship, lost weight, and I moved, that's kind of like when my dating life kind of picked up. It kind of picked up in a way that I didn't expect, honestly. But for the girlfriends that I had, I ended up being with them, or am with them, because ironically enough, I'm in a relationship right now, but I ended up being with them for, actually reasons why I would look like them, like not just for how they look, but intrinsic reasons too. And me personally, I find it hard to come across people that you like intrinsically, physically, and don't mind being around all the time, or almost all the time. So that's why it's hard for me to just jump into a relationship.
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't had a girlfriend in like 10 years.
Damn.
I just be chilling.
That's fine.
Vibing. I definitely. Let's talk dating apps.
Okay.
What is your experiences on the dating apps?
I know a lot of guys complain about dating apps. I've had a lot of fun on dating apps. I've had a lot of fun.
What's the favorite dating app?
My favorite dating app was Hinge. At that time when I was on Hinge before I got kicked off, some girl kicked me off of Hinge.
Wait, you got kicked off of Hinge?
Yeah, some girl got me banned off Hinge. So I'll tell you the skinny of this story, and we could always dive into it later. But case in point, she lived in the Bronx, and she insulted me first. And I said, well, frankly, you're not cute enough for me to risk my life going to the Bronx to come see you. And she was like, if you're broke, just say that. And I'm like, that's not what this is about. It's not about me not having money. I just don't want to go all the way out there to see you. I was acquainted to women coming over. You know, like a lot of guys were always like, oh, you have to go on dates and shit and you have to take them out. For me, like Hinge was so easy because it was so easy to just find like chicks. And I'm not talking about like your slump busters or your gargoyles, you know, you like women that are attractive. They'd always be open to like just coming over and chilling and just like having a drink or whatever the case may be. And I kind of got caught up in that where I was just like always cycling through women. But going back to your answer, yeah, Hinge was my favorite. At one point I had like 300 matches during like the summer of like 22.
300 matches?
300 matches, yeah.
How many of them did you actually link up with?
Out of that 300, probably like 10, 15 at max. Because at that point, and this is why I could kind of understand a woman's perspective, because you have so many, you get to be so nitpicky. It's almost fucked up because you're like, I don't like her hair. You know, move on to the next one. And the beauty of Hinge is that like women would they can message you, or like, you know, you can message first, but they always responsive. You know, never really had an issue until I ran into that woman, and it was fun.
Okay, that's interesting. How do you make your Hinge profile optimized?
Well, keep it brief. I think one thing that worked to my advantage was that I had modeling photos. You know what I mean? So like, I didn't have to say much. Like I think on Bumble, my shit had like world traveler, trilingual, because I speak French and Creole and English, obviously. And then I said I was a model, and I think what else did I say? I was into BDSM, and yeah. I mean, I am like, I'm totally open with sexual stuff. Guys, I recommend it. Listen, if there's anything chicks like, and it's, obviously you need consent. Please get consent. And I'm not saying you should do this, but if there's anything chicks like, it's, you know, being tied up by the guy they're attracted to. So, you know, I suggest it. But anyway, but yeah, I think overall, I can't necessarily complain about Hinge, and I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I hope that answered the question.
That BDSM got you thinking about some things?
It gave me flashbacks.
How did you get into BDSM?
I think at the time when I was broken up and I was kind of like riding that Hinge wave in dating, I kind of picked it up from like other women. Like they would tell me what they were into. Like I was always the type to ask. Like I'm not the kind of guy who's gonna like sit there and try and figure it out. Like, nah, tell me what you actually like, and you know, I'll try it. And throughout those encounters, you know, women just gave me like various like ideas for things, and I just kind of rolled with it. I just applied it to the next person, and some of them may not have ever experienced it before, and it was like a great experience for them, or they have experienced it and it was like a great time for them. And it was just like, for me, it was just a winning recipe. Like, take what you learn and just apply it to the next one. If that doesn't work, swap it out for someone else.
You're a very interesting guy. You said you're a world traveler too?
That's an embellishment. That's an embellishment. I will wholeheartedly say that. I have traveled, but I'm not a world traveler.
Favorite place you've been?
Favorite place I've been, honestly, Mexico, Tulum.
Tulum. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I like Cancun. I like Tulum. Tulum's a vibe.
Never been to Cancun though.
Cancun's a vibe. I like Mexico. Mexico is definitely seeing me probably in the next year or so.
Nice.
Okay. You also spoke about this on your podcast. I didn't mean to come back to the podcast, but I always thought this was interesting because you have takes on feminism.
Oh, wait! Before you say this, let me just grab my. Can I just grab my weed real quick?
Go ahead.
All right. Swear to God, I'm not fucking up the flow.
Nah, you good, bro.
All right. Cool.
How you enjoying Talking Cheap?
Let me give you my answer in front of Mike. I fuck with it, man. I like the idea. I think all people should have the capabilities to give their opinions, but I like how you do it. I like how you present it, and I'm curious to seeing where it goes and how far you could take it. Because at this rate now, if you keep doing it this way, it could definitely go a lot further. So I fuck with it.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. I fuck with your monologue podcast too. Nah, for real, I definitely do. It's dope. I think with a little pizzazz and a little structure, and like just flushing out ideas. Like if we just sat down and was like, all right, we just gonna flush out ideas and see where we could take this and get a little more structure. I think it could be really special. And I'm not just saying that.
I believe it. I appreciate that. All in due time. For me, it's a learning experience and kind of like a chance for me to express myself. So I'm all for, taking it much further and really bringing it to life. But I'm also, much like you said earlier, like trying to enjoy that journey and stuff. So, in due time. So no rush.
You said feminism. You basically did a top 5 reasons that feminism has benefited men and women.
Yes, it has.
And you said that sexual liberation has favored men.
Yes, absolutely.
How has that favored men?
Listen, if you're an attractive guy, you don't have to try anymore. When I moved out, and at the time when my roommate moved out and I was still in my old apartment, I had no furniture. I had chicks coming over, laying on the floor, on hardwood, drinking wine, chilling, having the time of their life. Chicks don't care.
Were they white women?
Some were white, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because, sisters care. Sisters care. You ain't got no furniture?
I think to that extent, yeah, you might be right. But for some of the sisters that I've ran into, thankfully, like at that time, they're like living in Brooklyn. So there would be some nights, like I would plan the date around where they lived. Not so like I could be on some creep shit, but like I knew if I swung it right, I'm smashing. But I don't have to spend money on an Uber because we all know at a certain time, public transportation stops running, right? At like 3 a.m. or some shit. I know I'm probably going to be leaving if I were to leave at like 3. So how the fuck am I going to get back to Staten Island? So I'd smash, stay over the night, and then leave in the morning. So, it'd be all diabolical and shit, like plan my dinner dates around it. Good times.
You're a villain.
Low-key. Low-key.
You said men don't have to be fathers anymore.
Correct. Because some women are just so willing to do it on their own. They're okay with you not being a dad. If you do her wrong, yeah, she'll probably throw on child support. My God rest his soul, my brother was on child support. And it's funny because when I had to go review the body and like confirm it, I went to go see him. He had like a smile on his face. I'm like, this motherfucker. So glad he don't have to pay child support. This motherfucker. So happy. But yeah, you don't have to be a dad anymore. If she wants to part ways and you have no responsibilities, you can wash your hands from it. Wash your hand. Obviously, I'm being facetious, but these are, as some might see it, benefits.
And then the last one you said, the dating pool has more tint to it. Like now, if you're a black man, these white women are pulling up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know back in the day, guys used to get a lot of flack. And I mean, even for myself, like I'm in a relationship right now with a white woman. And even when we go out, like I see people giving me the craziest looks. Sisters be giving me the craziest looks. And I mean, look, hate it all you want, but I think with the quote unquote sexual liberation that we see now, it's giving people a chance to, find other things they might like. Who knows? Like, black chick, listen to this. You might like a white guy. I don't know. Try it. What the fuck you want me to tell you?
So for you, you're just kind of like going where your happiness is, or?
Yeah, I mean, listen, go where you're not tolerated, but celebrated, where people actually want to get to know you. And if that person just so happens to be a different shade or a different ethnicity, then so be it. I mean, this is real life we're talking about. This isn't the age of old where people are so concerned about culture and all that shit. You live in America, bro. It's a melting pot. Culture does not exist here.
What would Dr. Umar say to you right now?
He'd be pissed, but then again, his sister is marrying a white guy, so he has other problems.
That's crazy.
Don't worry about me. You got more shit to worry about at home.
That's crazy.
But I don't know why he cares so much. Honestly, I get it. I get it. But let's really talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Who's to say attraction is exclusive to a race? Mm-hmm. How can someone say that? That's not true.
I think the issue with like Dr. Umar's perspective of it is kind of like the history of dealing with white people and understanding that there's a couple things you have to understand when you're dealing with a white woman.
How far are we willing to go here?
Bro, this is Talking Cheap podcast.
All right.
So dealing with white women has come with a lot of people, a lot of black men getting murdered, lynched, demolished, destroyed. Also, when you deal with a white woman, let's say you are a high earning man, all of the resources that you've built now goes to this white family and no longer is going to a black family with black women who, you know, support black men, would die for black men, or on the front line of black men no matter what. Even though a lot of black women don't like black men. I'm just keeping it real. They like a certain type of black man. They don't like all black men.
So that is one of the largest caveats in there. Enough for me to say, all right, well then whatever Dr. Umar is talking about, I don't care. Because quite frankly, I think we're getting to a point in this life where color or identifying people by it or lack thereof is getting a bit redundant at this point. And I say that because it's caused enough rifts, enough benign rifts or unnecessary vitriol between two groups of individuals who are blind to see the reality is that the problem is not white or black, it's the government. I'm not calling for a riot or anything, right? Excuse me. But I think for the most part, as a first generation Caribbean American, sorry, New World Order trying to kill me before I say this, bro. But I think it's important, at least from my perspective, seeing black Americans and white Americans constantly bicker back and forth about race. You guys are sidestepping what needs to be addressed, and it's equity being administered for all ethnicities from the government. But
you do understand that because the way of how America was established, and I think a lot of people who are not American, like born black people here, like indigenous African American people to this nation, we don't really understand how deep, race goes in this country. Like I always say, it's like race and class is not mutually mutually acceptable here and accepted in this country. Like there's no such thing as something happening because they're rich versus without race being a factor in it. You gotta understand, America was built on slavery. So of course race always is gonna play a role in how things are established. Like most of the laws in this country that impact black people are put in place because they're black, not just because they're poor, or not just because they're this. It was established because they were black. Then it became these other issues that were like, oh, they're poor, or they are disadvantaged, or they live in a situation, or they're disabled. A lot of it comes from legit, you're black, and because you're black, we're gonna do this, that, the third to make sure that that we're gonna treat you this way because you're black.
I could see that. I definitely understand those sentiments.
And then also you got the whole situation with the fetishization of black men and women from white people. You know what I mean? It gets deep. For us, it's kind of whatever. I mean, we have our issues with the British in a lot of our countries, or the French, but
it's the same thing for black Americans, right? I understand, and I definitely get the sentiments. But in my personal opinion, and it doesn't have to be, an accepted opinion, but I think in my compartmentalized brain, I think things of that nature could be spoken in open dialogue that is accepting on both parties, for both parties. And when I say accepting, I mean just open, tranquil, and civil, right? If those are pressing issues at hand for both parties, let's say it was an interracial relationship and, they had to hash those things out. But I think just in everyday dating, especially with metropolitan areas like New York City, San Francisco, LA, the idea that you won't be attracted to someone of another ethnicity and won't click is very unlikely. I think so. So I think anybody could stand to be a little more open-minded about it. If it's a cultural issue and you find out later on, yeah, sure, back out. But I think in the meantime, to limit yourself because of said stipulations that might be running in the background. It's kind of myopic in my perspective.
How have you ever been in a situation where you were dealing with a woman that was racist? Like you could tell, like she was.
Yeah, absolutely. My fucking ex's parents, they were racist as shit. They were super racist. Mind you, my ex was 6'2" blonde from Uzbekistan, right? So when I had met her parents, she had gotten into a fucking car accident and fucking T-boned somebody. And I was delivering pizza. I was down bad at that point. That was around the time I almost took my life. So she got into a car accident. She calls me. I'm in the middle of fucking delivering pizzas. I deliver this pizza. I go stop to see if she's all right. And then out the car comes her mom, who's like this Russian woman, barely speaks any English, and you know, is just like stone cold in the face, like shaking my hand. I'm like, all right, this is weird as shit. Anyway, you know, help the situation, give the cops the information, whatever, go about my business. And then like a couple of days later, we're talking, and she was like, oh, you know, my parents don't like you because you're brown, yada yada yada. And I get it. I mean, that was the crux of the reason of my abortion, was because of that. They were like, you're pregnant. If you have his kid, you know, we're going to disown you, this, that, and the third. I've been through it. I understand that. But at the same time, though, I think, again, it would be a little myopic to, you know, limit yourself because of, like, one situation shouldn't scare you away from, you know, potentially meeting someone that you really click with if they just so happen to be another ethnicity.
You never heard the term of a wise man learns from the mistakes of others.
Of course.
Listen, I get it though. Like I feel like we have a very unique perspective because we live in New York. We've been raised with like all different kinds of people: Spanish, Puerto Rican, Dominicans, Haitians, Taiwanese, Chinese, Indian. Like the list goes on and on. I'm gonna be real. I wish I would definitely explore more different ethnicities more. Mm-hmm. Like I love sushi. Okay. I should try to talk to Suki. You get me? You know, I think the South Indian girls, I feel like Wagner has some of the baddest Indian girls I've ever seen in my life. Oh yeah. Fire. Never got the opportunity to see what that's hitting for. You know, we had some fire Russian girls, Albanians. The Albanian women be fire. Yeah. Never got a chance to see what that's hitting for. I'll be feeling like, man, but at the same time, I feel like I hate to say it, and I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel like I have a responsibility to black women to be for black women. Rather, and I don't know why.
No, you don't.
You don't feel like you should, you know?
No, and listen, I've dated black women before. Dating black women are great. Here's the reality of it. The reality of it is, you can get burned by any chick. Doesn't matter the color. What matters is character. And as I get older, I truly learn it's not about what the individual looks like. It's really how they are inside. Like real shit. That really, really matters, because that is the difference maker between having a relationship that's peaceful or having one that is straight up hell. And it doesn't matter the color. Bro, date who you want, bro. There's some fuck, man, bro. What you get on the other side, bro? Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Shit.
Oh, it's lit over there.
Listen, what I can say, I can give you my preference. I really, really click with artsy yoga white chicks. That just so happens. I mean, I click with artsy yoga chicks of any race, but more so than not, you know, predominantly it's artsy yoga white chicks. And it's not like the stereotypical white chick either. Like, here's one thing I hate. I hate when people say that stereotype, like, oh, most black men, when they date out, it's usually like an overweight white woman.
Yeah, that's some fucked up shit right there.
I have never, ever dated an overweight white woman. Never, ever. Black guys aren't dating a lot of overweight white women like people would like to think.
They fucking them.
Probably.
They definitely fucking them.
I haven't. I've smashed more overweight women of color than overweight white women, to be honest. But that's besides the point. Yeah, you know, you get past the stereotypes and you start meeting like different people that offer you like different perspective from different walks of life, and you click. It's interesting. It gives the relationship like flavor. Like, I don't know why, but I find most of the time I've ever been in like a quasi relationship with a black woman, for some reason, more times than not, race is very often brought up in the conversation. And it's quite frankly a plight that I don't want to continue with my day. You know, like with so many things I could be thinking about, like ideas, content creation, you know, potential gigs I could land. The last thing I want to do is constantly talk about race, which I think is just very prevalent in the conversations between black men and women. And oh shit.
I feel it. So when you want to settle down and have a family, who do you plan on having a family with? And what kind of conversations are you prepared to have in that process? Because if you have a white woman as your wife, bro, you know, raising children in this environment with a white woman can be a challenge. I mean, maybe not in LA, but in a lot of other places, definitely.
I mean, it's only a challenge if you give a fuck about other people's opinion.
But to raise a child, though, you kind of have to, you know, prepare them for that, don't you?
I mean, the best I could tell that child is, like, regardless of what people tell you, you know, you come from a family that loves you and will do everything in their power to give you the best advantage in life. And that's not exclusive to skin color. You know, I don't give a fuck if you were fucking orange. So long as your DNA matched mine, I got you. And with that, walk on. Who gives a fuck? I got you.
Is there anything else that you want to tell the people?
Listen, live your life. Enjoy yourself. Life's too short to really give a fuck about the opinion of other people. And at the end of the day, the only person who can make their dreams become reality is you. And with that, walk on.
Very dope. If people want to... Actually, I do have a final question. What is the difference between Richard Roy Basquiat and Serge Roy?
So without giving away too much information, all of those names are my actual names. Like they're all like on my birth certificate. The only difference, I think, because now I do a lot of creative stuff, so I go by my middle name, Serge, and no real difference beyond that. I mean, people used to call me Richard. I think that name carried a lot of like baggage in a sense, where people are always like making fun of me, things of that nature, and like I feel like Serge was kind of like a chance for me to reinvent myself but still remain the same person. So, you know, with that I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go by Serge and, you know, just keep it at that.
I love it. People want to follow you, connect with you, book you for modeling gigs, learn more about BDSM. Where can they go to do that?
So if you want to follow me on Instagram, that's Maison de Roy, MAISONDEROY. For booking, modeling booking and inquiries, hit up my agent Jules or Adam at Chosen Model Management. For fitness, click the link on my Instagram. That'll give you the links to everything for fitness. It's there, photographyfitness.com. It's on the Apple App Store, Google Play Store. You can get my book on Amazon and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's also Maison de Roy. We talk about dating, relationships, and self-improvement. Got over 9K subs, trying to get to 10K. Do me that favor. That's it.
Very dope. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to Talk Ain't Cheap. Thank you to the Cletus group for always bringing that fire. Shout out to Cletus_Real Talk. Shout out to Immaculate Talk, Immaculate Scent, Immaculate everything immaculate. Just the brand's gonna run for itself. But like I say, you tune in to Talk Ain't Cheap, and it's not that deep. It's a vibe.